Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on where you are in the world today. Welcome to a live session of my Ask Me Anything video. Now, you might notice there's a little bit of a noise in the background. It's because it's early, very early for me. It's 7:30 in the morning, and I'm making myself a fresh cup of tea. I did 2 live streams yesterday, so my throat's a little sore, so I need my tea. So anyhow, let's see how we're doing here. Oh my goodness, we've already got some questions already. Let's see. Hold on, I need to get my glasses. Just a minute. All right, there we go. Now that I've got my glasses, I can actually see what's being written here. Let me just take a look at a first comment from On the Road. Hi, Simon. You mentioned the other day that the new M1 Mac and the importance of having at least 32 gigabytes of RAM, as the lower amount would wear out the SSD. Did I get that right? Okay. Whew, catch my breath here. I woke up at like 6:41, stayed in bed for a bit, got ready, and then all of a sudden it seemed like there was a bit of a time warp, and it was like 1 minute to go live. So I did what any normal person would do. So I say, heck with it. I'm going to be a few minutes late. Don't worry about it. It's just how it is. When you're editing 4K video, a good rule of thumb is you should have 32 gigabytes of RAM. That's what you really need. And also, you're not just going to be having your editing software present. You're going to have photo editing software. You probably have a browser open. So 32 gigs is really what you need. Now, an M1, it's very fast, and the SSDs that it have are very fast too. So if it starts paging to disk, the old term we used to use, paging to disk, in the old days, that used to be noticeable. Things would really slow down. But today, that's not so much. So what starts to happen is it's going to page to the SSD, and it's going to put more use on it. It's going to wear out a little sooner. Now, there's been tests and studies done as to what this really means. You know, maybe by year 8, you might wear it out. By year 5, you might wear it out. It's really hard to say, and I don't really know. All I know is that when you're getting a machine, you want to make sure that that internal SSD is big enough not only for the OS, but what you're likely going to put on it. And I think a minimum these days is 512, so that way there's plenty of storage to mess around with, and you're not going to be, like if you get a 128 or 256 SSD and put it inside your machine, well, what's going to happen is you've barely got enough room for everything, so it's going to keep rewriting over the same cells, wearing it down sooner. So if you're going to be doing video and you're going to be doing 4K, 32 gigabytes is a good rule of thumb. Now, if you get one of these M1s like I've got, and yes, I'm doing 4K editing, and yes, I'm using it for all my channel stuff, while I wait to get my MacBook Pro or one of those larger high-performance Macs. But for now, for a little bit of usage, for about 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. And for occasional video use, it's not a big deal. But if you're using it in, day out, it's your main machine, yeah, you want 32 gigs. And Larry's even said the same thing, you know, for 4K video, 32 gigs is really where you want to be. Now, as we go north of that, the performance gains or benefits really aren't that significant. So, really good question. Now, this is my first live Ask Me Anything video. So what I normally do with these videos, I do a brief introduction saying, thank you for joining The Ordinary Filmmaker. I always ask you to like and subscribe. But what I want to do right now is start off with the news, which is what I normally do. Now, my throat might start to go, so I've got some straight gin here. I mean tea. Tea. It is tea, honestly. Oh, that feels better. And I'm going to start off with the news. So let's take a look at the news that I put out this week. You won't see it on your screen because I'm still kind of new to this OBS system here. And one interesting tidbit is that, well, the Panasonic GH6 is supposed to be announced on Panasonic's or Lumix's 20th anniversary. And I had to do quite a bit of digging to find out what that date was, but apparently it is September the 17th. So Panasonic hasn't come out and said anything about the date. So here's what we know. Yamane-san, works within Lumix. He's probably a director or a senior manager there, and he's come out and said that it's coming out this year. The GH6 is coming out this year. So forget what anybody else says out there. This is relatively recent. Yamane-san has said the GH6 is coming out in 2021. I was almost going to say 2026. It's coming out in 2021. So that's good news. And then a rumor the other day on 4/3 Rumors. You got to love those guys. They're always pumping out information. They pump out more information than I do. And they said that it's going to be coming out on the 20th anniversary. And that's where I went the digging to find out that Lumix first started back on September the 17th, 2001. So significant year, 2001. It reminds me of the movie Space Odyssey. And when that year hit, that's one movie I watched over again. Beautiful, beautiful movie. You know what that movie reminds me of? Is where we've come in terms of technology. The movie was shot in the mid to late 60s. And I'm just staggered at what they've done with it. But I would love to see them do go back and improve on the digitization of it, because it's a terrific, terrific movie. All right, so what else did we get in terms of news? So we got more information about the Canon R3. It's supposed to be able to do 8K at 60 frames per second. 60 frames per second. That's slow motion 8K. Think back a couple of years ago when we were so frustrated with Canon. Like, come on, 4K with a 1.7 times crop, soft 4K, no IBIS, and now we're getting 8K 60 frames per second. So that's quite staggering. It's going to be a back illuminated sensor. Now there's some discussion as to whether this is a completely Canon build or if they're working with somebody else. The Canon UK site said, yes, this is a completely Canon made everything, blah, blah, blah. That information's gone off their site. So we'll just have to wait and see about that. Other items. So sorry, no, it's not the R3 that's going to have 8K 60. You're talking about the 3 new cinema cameras coming out. My apologies. It's still early for me. So the 3 new cinema cameras we got coming out, will be able to do 8K 60, 4K 120 frames per second, 4K 240 frames per second, and the 4K models up to 20 stops of dynamic range. The 2 8K models will do up to 16, 17 stops of dynamic range. Now, see, anybody catch my mistake on that one? Let's take a look at the comments here. Oh, I didn't open up that screen. So give me oh, there we go. So, okay, good. So nobody, good thing I caught the mistake before anybody else did. Now, what I'm noticing here, I've got so far 7 concurrent viewers. I'm testing at different times of the day. I went live yesterday evening just because I wanted to test the setup. And let me know, is this broadcasting in 1080p? Because I've set it up for so. Yesterday it ended up being 720. But I had up to about 32 concurrent viewers. So I'm trying early in the morning Saturday, which is afternoon European time, and later on in Asia. So I'm really curious to see how well this time does. And I broadcast this time too, so we'll just have to wait and see. I do like doing Friday nights though. All right, so let's go back to the news. And in terms of those cameras, they look to be really, really good. Sony registered a new camera. We don't know if it's going to be the a7 IV. It's hard to say. We were supposed to, according to Sony Rumors or Sony Alpha Rumors, have an announcement shortly after the Alpha 1. I don't consider May shortly after, and still there's no sign of it. But Sony's very good at keeping secrets, so we'll just have to wait and see. And of course, it's very little secret now that Mac or Apple is going to be announcing a MacBook Pro at WWDC. Now, I kind of predicted this a little while ago. Now everyone's saying it's happening. More leaks are coming out. The next processor is in production. The new MacBook Pros are also in production. So availability, who knows, it could be anywhere from January to August, but I do expect they'll be available prior to the new school season starting up. So that's really, really exciting. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions. And I want, is my audio peaking, guys? How's the audio? Because I just took a look here and it looks like it's peaking a bit. No one's saying anything about audio. I'm just going to adjust this Probably need to adjust the gain. That's audio properties. Properties. I couldn't say that last night either. Let's put it down to 2. So let's try that. Move this away a little bit. Okay, so let's just see if that is a bit better. Please let me know if the audio is peaking or distorting or anything like that. All right, now before I get, thank you, I appreciate that. Now before I get to your questions, because here's how I do the Q&A session. I seek your questions ahead of time. That gives me some time to do some research, and so those questions will get prioritized. If anybody drops a super chat, they'll get prioritized over anything else. It's just the etiquette of the internet. Once you do a super chat, you get bumped to the top of the line. And then, of course, I'm going to go to your questions. So I've got about 7 or 9 questions here, and let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, you know what? It was definitely better with the MacBook. So here's the thing. I just got a comment saying, and is it from MCO? MCO just said that it was better with the MacBook Air, and it was. But here's my problem. I'm currently, you notice the video's better. I'm using the Canon EOS R5 as my video source. And yeah, the Web EOS utility doesn't work on the M1. So I'm using older hardware. And I bought some new adapters so I could plug the Ethernet directly in, but you know, two steps forward, 1 step backwards. We'll just have to wait for it to be compatible with the M1. Once that is, then I won't use this headphone, I'll use that microphone, and I know it'll be better. All right, so let's take a look at our questions that I've got lined up for this week. The first one is from Stop the FOMO. I know that's kind of hard to read, so let's just bring this down here so I can see. Let's turn off Navigator. Does that help? There we go. So Stop the FOMO says, yes, the Atomos Ninja Plus, the V Plus he's talking about, is announced, and I just pre-ordered it on your B&H link. So thank you for doing that, Stop the FOMO. And guys, if you do order any equipment, you do it through the links, I get a small 2% feedback that helps support the channel. He goes on to say it's capable of recording 8K and 4K 120. Yes! Also, it now includes H.265 codec. Pretty exciting. Question, will you be getting it? Well, that's a big question, isn't it? Okay, so now how to get back to OBS here. A definite maybe. I don't have a justification at this point, based on what I know about it, to spend $1,400 US on the Ninja 5 Plus. I plan to do more 8K, but if I'm not planning on doing a lot more 8K, I don't have a big push to get it. And the Ninja 5 gives me pretty well everything I need for my channel, and that's where I primarily use it. Now, if Atomos wants to send me out one to review, which I'm sure they probably will, I did a terrific job of the review last year, so much so that I asked if I could get a copy, and I'd be happy to do some sort of sponsoring, because I really believe in the technology. If you're doing a lot of event stuff, or you're doing something where you're filming interviews, or anything where you're going to be in front of your talent for a long time, just continuous shooting, live streaming, YouTube, whatever it is, boy, does it really help save time in your workflow. So I'm really happy with the Ninja 5 that I have. And as far as, well, I like new gear. Now, I'm not FOMO. I don't have a fear of missing out. I'm very much a business guy, and I always look at, well, okay, what are the capabilities? What does this give me that I don't currently have? And then I look at that, and I look at the cost of investing, and that's where I weigh things out. And I recently did the same thing. I've been wanting the Sony a7S III for the longest time. I wanted to run both cameras in my channel, and I finally made the decision not to. And the reason for that is I was going to have to spend at least another $6,000 to $8,000 Canadian to purchase that into my system, and it wasn't going to give me any additional revenue. It wasn't going to, as far as a business decision, it was bad. From a channel point of view, viewer point of view, I really liked it because it showed that I wasn't just Canon, I wasn't just Sony. I have multiple cameras in my environment. I really liked that idea, but from a business point of view, it just didn't make a lot of sense. So that's, and see, Stop the FOMO in here? No, because it's 4 o'clock in the morning for him. He's out on the Pacific Coast, so thank you. Thank you, MCO. Appreciate it. Greetings from Switzerland. Thank you for dropping in. 35 millimeter, I don't know. Yes, there is a 35 millimeter. Just it says 35 millimeter question mark. So I'll say yes, I am using a 35 millimeter camera. All right, so let's go to our second question. Oh, it's not a magenta tint. So what I'm using, and it looked better last night, is behind me, I've got my, whatchamacallit, Ulanzi LED light. So that's what's giving it a slight tint there. And this light, hold on, it's not quite directly on me. And I forgot one more thing, give me a second. Okay, that should be a bit better. Now I've got my white light directly, it's still not quite on me. There we go. So yeah, always have the white light on your talent. Now that lighting should look a little bit better, and I've got the top lights shining down as well, so I forgot to turn those on. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our next question here. Turn on Navigator, and the next question is from Angus. You really do need two monitors to do this. I'm getting all my screens mixed up. You should see my setup here. It's pretty bad. Okay, Angus asks, what do you think are the realistic specs and price for the upcoming Sony a7 IV? This one isn't that difficult. Now, pricing, this is how we all do it. You look at the price of the a7 III when it first came out. You look at how many years it's been since. So let's say it's been 3 years. And you apply the current rate of inflation. That's 2%. So you take the price, you add 2% for each year, and that's kind of your base minimum that you'd expect. Now, if you're not living in the United States, then what you also have to look at is the delta in the foreign exchange rate. So has your currency got appreciated in value against the US dollar or depreciated? And you have to factor that in as well. So thankfully, here in Canada, the currency has appreciated 10%. So things like the new 100 millimeter f2.8 lens should be getting cheaper by the time it's released. So that's really good news. And in terms of specs, here's another way we do that. We look at the Sony a7S III, and we know that as far as video goes, the a7 IV isn't going to beat the a7S III/FX3. It just doesn't make sense because that's a video-centric camera. So 4K 120, maybe not. 4K 60 most likely. 4K 30 definitely. And on the still side of things, we know it's not going to beat the Alpha 1. So it's going to be somewhere in between it. I think somewhere like a 26 megapixel sensor makes sense. But, you know, it's going to be mid-capable somewhere between those cameras. And that's how we kind of predict where it's going to be. But as far as leaks, there's really very little. And what there is most likely not coming from Sony, but most likely somebody like me that's projecting what they think it will be and calling it a rumor. So that's very interesting. And you think it's going to be, you think it's going to be $2,500. And yes, there is a little bit of that tinge on my face. Looking over. Yeah, you know what, so I'm a little pink magenta this morning. No big deal. Last night it was better, but the lighting is different. So I also have the light coming in from outside, so it's bright outside. So I'm fighting different light sources. It's not like where I shoot in the studio. I have better control over things. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm more concerned that the quality is coming out, that you're getting 1080p. I'm worried about the video. This is probably going to be the last Q&A that I'm going to do live for a while because I'm just not happy with the technology that I have before me. I might do some more, but the technology, if I could use the M1 with the Canon R5, I'd be very happy because the audio is pretty decent and the video is pretty good with the Canon R5. So, all right, let's go to our next question. Oh, I lost my screen again. There we go. That's this one here. Demogul asks, would you consider getting a single angle for your videos if that's cut off there? Let's see. If you do, will it be Canon? Well, I think I kind of just answered that in terms of I always wished I could have the a7S III and I'd want to have a second angle. For my news videos, it's not really that important. I don't really care that I have multiple angles, but it's fun. It's certainly fun to play around with, but the cost of getting another camera, see the problem is I got the R5, which is an expensive camera. So to match its quality, I've got to spend a decent amount of money to get another camera. And I've just got to look at the benefits of that, and I just don't see it. Like even Panasonic, if Panasonic sent me an S5 to review and said, hey, you can keep it, that would be perfect. Sure, the autofocus doesn't work, but I'd set it to manual mode, and it would be perfect for what I'm looking at doing. But, you know, it's doing a channel, you'd be amazed at how expensive it is. I spent over $20,000 in gear for the channel in just over a year, so it's a major commitment. So there's always more money you can spend, and I just choose to ease off a little bit. Again, how does it improve the channel? Good morning, Bard. Good to see you. Let's see. We got a question from Marcel. Yeah, we got a few. Okay, so does the R5 track better, sharper focus with electronic versus mechanical? Okay, I always shoot mechanical. That should tell you something. I've shot electronic a few times, and I don't know if it's my lack of experience with stills, but I just prefer mechanical. I think it looks better. I've never pixel peeped, but I'm not a big fan of the electronic. And you know what? For most of what I'm shooting, 12 frames per second, 12 to 8 frames per second is more than fast enough for what I need. So I stick to what I use. I'm a videographer most of the time, and video, I know what I'm doing. I know what I need to set up. I understand the difference between C-Log 1, C-Log 2, C-Log 3, but when it comes to stills, I'm a noob, complete noob. So I can't comment too much on the still side of them. All right, let's take a look at our next question. Our next question is from Rumor Has It. Do you still use a voice-activated teleprompter app, or have you given up in frustration like me, throwing it at the wall and stomping it into tiny little pieces? Okay, I made up that last bit. Yeah, I do still use it. I find it's a huge time saver. I do know that sometimes it jumps ahead. And for whatever reason, with the version I've got now, whenever you try to scroll, once you've started reading, it's kind of jumpy, not the best. But as far as my dialect, it's very accurate. And what you'll notice I do sometimes when I'm doing my videos, I'll tap over here. And what I'm doing is I'm stopping it instead of trusting it to know when to stop. Go off on my rant, tap back, and then continue the flow. But I do find that it saves me a lot of time. But I'm also trying to move away from it. I'm trying to use my laptop here, look at stuff, reference back and forth, and then just speak freely like I'm doing now. And I think that's going to give it a more natural feel. You're going to see the real me and less, Walter Cronkite. You're welcome, Marcel. Okay, so here's a question from the chat. What aperture do you use for family videos? I have 3 kids, and I have a hard time to keep them all in focus. Okay, well, so you got to ask yourself, what do you want in focus? Do you want them all in focus or not? If you want them all in focus, then go out to f16, f20, whatever your max is, and focus on that, because that's going to bring most everything in focus. And then what you need to do is adjust your f-stop or your ND filter, and always keep your shutter at 1/60th. I find that works really well. So that's what you've got to do. Now, there's going to be times where one of your youngsters is going to do something and you want to focus on them. But I find that it can be very difficult to, you set up for f16, you're shooting, you're good to go. And now once you bring it back down to, let's say, an f4, well, it's not as simple as, oh, let's change to f4 and continue shooting. No, you got to check your histogram, you got to check your waveforms, you got to make sure that you're exposed properly. It's not so hard with an APS-C camera, but with a full frame, it's a whole lot less forgiving. So usually what I do is if I see, oh, I wish I could get this close up, I'll continue getting what I need fully with everything in detail, very narrow at like an f16 aperture. And then what I'll do is I'll get what I need there, then I'll change the camera to what I need, and then I'll start doing the close-up stuff. So that's what I do. Now, sometimes you can cheat a little bit depending on what lens you have on it. You can just move a whole lot closer to your kid and then that will start to blur out the background and everything else around it. So experiment with those different techniques, but that's what I do. And you know what, sometimes you miss a shot up close, but what you can do with if you're shooting in 4K all the time, you can always punch in post, which I find very, very handy. And I do that a lot. The video that I've got ready to come out, I don't have the lens here, it's in the other room. It's the TT Artisan 21mm. And for the product shots, I punch in quite a bit. It's very useful, and it doesn't look bad if you do so. Remember, it's the storytelling that matters more than how it's cut together. And yes, I understand that cutting it together is part of the storytelling, but the storytelling should always come first. So I hope that helps. All right, so let's go back to the questions that I've got here ahead of me. Federico asks, share it up here. Federico asks, what's the situation with the Canon EF-M? Are they going to release more lenses? Maybe a final body with IBIS, and then kill it off in a huge fit of rage? I think there's a great deal of people that love the system's compactness. And you are right. A lot of people do love the system's compactness. But I've always believed that actions speak louder than words. 3 RF lenses. Announcement for the R3. We got the R5, the R6. We got a boatload of lenses. And what have we got for the EF-M within that time frame? Yeah, absolute silence, nothing. I don't believe the EF-M system is dead. I believe it's nearly dead. There's not a lot of commitment there right now. We can see it in the results. And that's why a lot of people are asking. Now, from Canon Rumors, and I love Canon Rumors, Craig does a really good job of putting information out there. For a while there, he thought that, yeah, it pretty well is dead. There's going to be one camera coming out this year, and then that's it. But then, I think it was early this year, he said, well, Canon's looking at doing a pivot. And there was a camera, so forgive my props here. It basically had a long pole, and then the head was right on here, and it was like gimbalized. So you could move it around, and it would act like a gimbal. I mean, I think that's really wonderful. But it was still an interchangeable lens camera. And if they do that, then I think it could help revitalize, because what do we want? Those of us that want a compact camera, we can put it in our shirt pocket, in our coat, it's easy to travel with it. But what is the one thing that we wish we could do better? We could better stabilize the video, get that smooth video. And we also want it to expose us properly. We don't want to have to be camera nerds. I think that's a huge part of the segment that gets that camera. We want better video and better photos, but we want that computational aspect. And I think if Canon does do that, and they borrow from the ZV-1, I think the Sony ZV-1 is a terrific camera, it really is. But you put in that gimbalized handle that Canon has, there was a patent filing for it. I covered it many weeks ago, many months ago, and I think that could revolutionize it. You got to give people something extra. You look at these iPhones. I mean, they're truly incredible. And now you've got companies that are making lens attachments to go onto them. So Canon and Sony and others, you have to give people something better. You got to be different. Otherwise, why? You spend enough on your smartphone. You might as well get a slightly better one with a better camera. And you know what? It gives you almost 80–90% of what the average person needs. So that's what I'm hoping. So we'll see if that's true or not. I do think we're going to get one more EF-M announcement this year. But here's my advice. If you are looking at investing into the M system, or you are buying M system gear, I would buy EF lenses and get the adapter if you don't already have it. Because here's the thing, that way you cover yourself. Because EF lenses are migratable to the R system, and I got to tell you, they perform better on the R system. There's no issues with the adapter. In fact, you forget the adapters on there. The only thing I would caution is EF-S lenses. While they work just as well on the R system, they're automatically put into cropped mode. You lose 4K 120, and you feel like you're a little bit crippled or handicapped. And so I would just get EF lenses and get some used ones. And then at least if you're investing in the system and Canon does stop producing for it, well, when you're ready to migrate to the R system, you can, because of the adapter, whereas EF-M lenses, you're done. That's it. They're not migratable, and that really is, that's one reason why I never even considered the M-Sys or the M6. All right, let's take a look at some of the more comments here. Okay, yeah, good morning, Bard. Looking for any more questions. Bard asking, at the C70 for wedding films, corporate promos, documents, music videos, real estate. Any experience with the camera? No, I don't have experience with the camera, but I think for all those things you mentioned, yeah, it would work very well, especially with music videos, the way it does the syncing. I think it's a solid camera, and you're not going to have to worry about anything. I still might consider getting something like a Ninja 5, because then that way you can control the codec you want. So if you do ProRes RAW, you can get ProRes right out. You can edit right off the SSD. So I think that's better. And I think the cards you get on the card slots for the C70 are not the fastest. So by getting a Ninja 5, sticking it on top of the C70, what that'll allow you to do is be able to edit right off the SSD and get cheaper storage. And I think that's going to work, be a lot smarter. So there's no more transcoding, there's no more moving content off. It's there and ready to go. So I think that's really good to do. And you just pop up the SSD, you can pop another one in, and you can keep filming while the guys are doing editing if you're a multiple person show. So there's that as well. All right. Looks like a lot of people don't like getting up early. We're up to about 15 concurrent viewers. So that just seems to be this time in the morning. So maybe if I do this again, I'm probably just going to do it on a Friday night. And then that gives me the complete weekend to myself as well, which is good. Because if you guys aren't watching live, what's the point of doing a live show? Okay, Rocky asks, and can you guys see this? Yep. Rocky asks, do you think the Ninja 5 Plus 8K functionality for the R5 will require sending it to Canon for an upgrade, like they did with C-Log in the 5D Mark IV? They may have also upgraded the physical port in the R5 to a full-size HDMI fit. Ah, you're just dreaming. You're dreaming, Rocky. That's not going to happen. So here's what I think is going to happen. They're going to use the existing ports on the unit. So yeah, HDMI is 2.0, and I don't know if they've found a way around that. But most likely what will happen is they'll, excuse me, intense pausing. What they'll probably do is use USB. USB should be more than capable of that speed. But it's not a worry because they've already solved the problem. Atomos said that they were working with Canon, so I wouldn't be surprised if a firmware update on the R5 is going to come out in time to support this. So I'm not too sure where the limitation is. Remember, when it comes to things like HDMI 2.1 and 2.1 and 2.0, it's part hardware and part software. I don't know where that certification is on the R5. I don't know if they only tested it up to 2.0. I don't know, right? So the good news is we do know that you're most likely going to be able to shoot unlimited 8K on the R5 now, or unlimited video on the R5, whatever mode you're in. And that's really, really significant. And I would assume so. It's going to be around $1,400. And why would you pay $1,400 if you couldn't shoot unlimited 8K? So I'm expecting that's the big thing. So once you can go from saying, yeah, maybe 20 minutes, depending on how many times you're in the menus, to, yeah, it's 8K unlimited, then that $1,400 becomes very affordable, because a camera that does do 8K without overheating, it's going to cost you in multiples of the price of an R5. Like those 8K cameras that are supposed to be coming out this year, and they are coming out this year. We know that. We've already seen video from Canon. I mean, they put it out there. They're shooting with 8K cameras. So I bet you they're going to be multiples of price. The price of the R6 or the R5 will look like the tax on that camera. So that's going to be very interesting. Let's see. Getting up early. For me, where I am, it's 2. So it sounds like you're in Central European time if it's 2:04 in the afternoon. So, yeah. Oh, and last question from Extreme Marco. No problems with your wife spending so much for a camera? My wife would kill me if she knows how much I spend in the R5. Okay, so we're going to go down memory lane here. I'm going to get comfortable, bring up another chair, put my feet up. So, story time. It was probably September, October last year, right around going from September to October, because this is when we start to get camera rumors or camera announcements. And I still had my 70D. and I wanted to get a new camera, and there was rumors that the 90D was coming out. And I was kind of excited by this camera. I did want to go full frame, but I thought, you know, if the 90D gives me most of what I need, I'll get it because I can use all my lenses. It's a very cheap upgrade. So I stayed up late. The announcements came out. Wow, this is a good looking camera. It's going to be great. Went to bed excited, thinking I'm going to buy this camera in the morning. Woke up in the morning, and I don't know what happened. Somebody took away 24 frames per second and all eye. And I always shoot in all eye. My 70D can do it. The 80D can do it. And I just thought, what the hell? What are they doing? This is nonsense. So I was a little bit disappointed. I thought about it for a day and I realized, yeah, I'm not getting this. I realized I'm ready for a full frame. And I started doing more research. And what I realized by mid-October is like, why don't I do a channel? I'm doing all the research. I'm doing a ton of it. How hard can it be? And the final straw came when I was watching a Camera Conspiracies video. And he was set up in his mother's house. He just had a simple partition. I thought, well, okay, as far as set goes, it's very basic, very simple. Camera, very simple. Audio is very simple. What? Okay, let's do it. So one day I just got up off the couch. It was October the 26th, I believe, when I did my first video. And I shot it right here, actually. And it was terrible, but that was my start, what got me into doing this. And I didn't tell my wife. And it was easy not to tell my wife because she left work at noon and didn't come home till about 11 o'clock back then. So, you know, I could have everything moved up, cleaned away, and she would have no clue. And she never went to the basement. So eventually I moved it into the best basement. I spent about 1,700 Canadian. I bought a bunch of lights. I bought a microphone. I bought an iPad, Glide Gear TMP 100 for a teleprompter. And then one day she came downstairs and she said, what's going on here? You're not shooting some suspect videos, are you? And that's not what she said. She said something else. And I told her, I said, you know, I've got an idea to make some money off this. I've invested $1,700 for my technology fund, and I'm not spending any of the family's money. And now here's the thing. I have something called a technology fund, and you got to get your wife prepared for this when you get married. You can't just spring it on her, but it can still work. And what I was doing is I was teaching ESL on the side and doing other web work, and all that money that I got from that would go into a special account that I call the technology fund. So if I need a new laptop, a lens, a camera, I'd pull the money out of there. So as soon as I said technology fund, she's like, oh, okay, no big deal. But that was $1,700. Then I told her I was planning on getting an R5. She says, oh yeah, how much does that cost? I said, now again, I'm talking in Canadian dollars here. I told her, I said, well, $10,000. She goes, oh, that's a lot. I said, yeah, probably up to $14,000 by the time I get some lenses. And she goes, oh my God, that's a lot. And I said, yeah, but don't worry, it's coming out of the technology fund. She says, okay. As soon as she hears technology fund, no big deal, because I've conditioned her to realize that the money that comes from there is from the extra work I do outside. So my wife is actually very lucky because the money that I spend on my hobby actually pays for itself. That's one of the reasons I did this channel, is not just to learn, and oh, have I learned an awful lot. I'm very thankful for this opportunity, and I'm thankful for you guys watching. But I've learned an awful lot, and I'm able to cover the costs of this hobby, which is absolutely terrific. And if I stop doing this channel today, if I say I'm done today, I'd say 95% of everything I bought I can use, or let's say 90% of everything I bought I'll continue to use for my personal life. Now, do I need to use a Ninja 5 for all my stuff? Not really, though it's cool. Do I need a teleprompter? No, I'd probably get rid of that. And there's other stuff that I don't need. And the iPad, well, that becomes just regular family use, right? So, yeah, good observation. All right, so let's go back. We got a few more questions that were submitted to me. Alan Marshall has the next question. And Alan Marshall asks, have you had any issues with the R5? IBIS on, the first image not being sharp, yada, yada, yada. That's the issue that's been reported. More people are finding this, I think. No, I definitely haven't. And the reason I haven't is, well, I don't shoot a lot of stills. I shoot mostly video. When I do, it's usually a one-shot type mode. I'm shooting portraits. I haven't really shot a lot of fast action. Even if I did, I might not catch on because it's not uncommon when you spray and pray that not everything is going to be in focus. And in fact, if you got 10% of them out of focus, I would consider that a success. So no, I don't think it's a big deal, as I primarily shoot video, and it's going to be fixed, so I wouldn't really worry too much about it. We don't know what firmware update it's going to be fixed in, but it will be taken care of. All right, so that's a bit of a racial thing, so I'm going to hide that one there. Don't want people, let's not get to racial stuff. Let's see, has anybody asked a question next? Julian, good question. How do you remove lens distortion and chromatic aberration in video? I don't. So when I choose a lens for whatever it is I'm doing, I choose a lens for an effect to tell a story. Now, if I go really wide, such as a 21mm, there's going to be some distortion, there's going to be some different effects, but to me, that's part of the story, the atmosphere that lens brings. If I shoot with a 50mm, it's going to be different. If I shoot with a 24-105, it too will be different, as will an 800mm. I'm not worried about creating sterile videos. I don't mind imperfections. I mean, it's part of the technology. So I'm not too worried about it. Now, what matters to me more than anything else is chromatic aberration. That I don't care for as much. I don't like it when, for example, when I captured Saturn and Jupiter, you could see on Jupiter there was a bit of a shift of the blue to the bottom with chromatic aberration. But I'm shooting Jupiter, which is 1 billion kilometers away, or 1.2 billion kilometers away, and I'm not using the lens really for what it was designed for. So I'm pushing things a little bit. But for a lot of regular shooting, yeah, chromatic aberration bothers me the most. Not getting the colors balanced properly bothers me the most. But a little bit of lens distortion, I'm not too worried about. I don't try to pull that out. And our next question is by InFocus. InFocus asks, does the R5 overheat in 4K 60 while recording externally to the Ninja 5? If yes, what are the limits? I'm sure if I worked for Atomos, I could give you a much better response. I don't shoot 4K 60. I just don't see the point to it. I shoot 4K 30 for almost everything I do. And when I want slow motion, I shoot 4K 120. But I would suspect that in shooting in the studio, it wouldn't overheat. You can shoot for an indefinite amount of time, and others have done it. But I haven't tested it yet. What I plan to do is once it starts to warm out outside there, and today it's getting up to 55 degrees Fahrenheit or about 13 degrees Celsius. Once it gets up above 70 or 23 degrees, I'm going to start shooting more videos outside, these AMA videos, and I'm going to try different things. I'll try shooting an entire video in 4K 60. I'll try shooting an entire video in 4K 30 HQ. And if Atomos lends me the new Ninja, I'll try shooting an entire video in 8K, and I don't know what I'll have to do for storage. I'll figure that out. But yeah, it's the only way to know is to test these things out. But I shoot 4K 30 for everything. And with the Ninja 5 in the studio, because I only got it in the winter, and it's cold inside in the studio, I have never, ever even seen the overheat warning come on. It's been absolutely terrific. And it's the only way to truly get the better time. But think about this. What you're getting is you're getting the signal coming directly off the processor. It's not doing any processing work. It is not writing to a card. And those CF Express cards get very hot. You're just taking an HDMI out. So the camera's not doing an awful lot of work. And actually, I'm going to go up. I'm going to touch my camera here. Let's see if it's heating up in any way whatsoever. No, so I've been shooting about, what, 40 minutes now? And this is a 4K HQ feed. Yep, 4K HQ. Oh, oops. It's 60 frames per second. So I'm doing 4K 60 right now. So there you go. And I was probably doing 4K 60 yesterday. So this is a different mode than what I normally would choose. So the camera is actually doing 4K 60. And yeah, I didn't have a problem yesterday, not having a problem right now either. So I think it's definitely going to be minimized. If you shoot the R5 by itself, it likes to overheat. The The Ninja 5 and the R5 should be sold together in a kit form. It really should. There's a lot of us that would benefit from that matchup. All right, and I think we got the last. No, we got two more questions here. Nick Ann asks, has the so-called shortage of microprocessor chips across various electronic equipment been a real issue, or a manufacturing company's scam to generate greater profit per chip and push the prices up towards the ceiling? No, this is a very real problem. In fact, in the United States, the White House actually recognized the problem. They're looking at strategies to help overcome this. And a lot of companies are actually leaving money on the table. They're like, look at the R5. Canon would have done a whole lot better if they could have sold more units. There's the difference between making your stuff a little bit scarce, but then keep pumping it in so people don't have to wait more than a couple of weeks. But when you're waiting 6+ months for gear, that's affecting your bottom line, and companies don't want to do that. So, there are definite real shortages, and it's affecting every industry, and it's something that does need to be fixed. So, yeah, it's not faked in any way whatsoever. And our last prepared question is from Joey. So, Joey, I know you're watching. Your question was, why do you think 8K is becoming an industry standard? A standard for whom? Definitely not the ordinary filmmaker, that's for sure. Just because more cameras are capable of shooting 8K doesn't mean it's immediately useful for people. Well, and here's the thing, it doesn't really matter. A standard's a standard. It doesn't matter who comes up with it. And we're seeing it more in broadcast television. And once you see it happen there, that's good, because then, there's more demand for 8K TVs, and the market will shift. And I'm really surprised, because it took so long for us to get to 4K televisions from FHD, and now going from 4K to 8K seems to be just accelerating. And where it matters, it always starts in sports. If you can produce 8K sports with high detail, high resolution, you're going to get a lot of people moving towards it, and that'll really bring people along. But for ordinary filmmakers, I got to be honest with you, Joey, I was kind of like you. I felt like, wow, the R5 has 8K, but I'll never use that. Well, no, I didn't say that. I said I probably won't use it for many years. And then in February, I shot a video. I've only done one. I shot an entire video in 8K. I shot outside, shot in the studio, and I was gobsmacked by the resolution. I mean, it was just incredible. I shot snow that was falling off the trees with the sun coming through, so I had high dynamic range. I had C-Log 1. The detail in the scene was incredible. You could see the individual snow, just as it fell off the branch, it would kind of like not shatter, but dissolve and fall into smaller and smaller pieces and cascade down. As the light shot through the trees, you could see the blue sky shining off the bright green leaves or the evergreen needles as it's coming down into the darker floor of the forest. And all that one scene, and the detail was just truly incredible. And so now whenever I see the opportunity, I shoot in 8K. I'm trying to produce a naturescape video. I can definitely see the benefit and the power of 8K. And you know what? I would shoot more in 8K if it wasn't for the cost of storage. Even though I only have a 4K television, to be able to shoot 8K video and know that in 5 or 10 years, when 8K becomes a standard for home use, I've already created the content that's ready. Because I look at the stuff that I shot in 1080 a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, and I wish it was in higher detail now. There's no question. You look at the difference between what I shoot today and what I shot then, it's like, wow. And that's always the case. We always look back at stuff we shot in the past and wish it could be better. And what I can say this about 8K, you got to try it to understand it. And once you try it, then you can go, oh, I get it, but I still don't need this. Or I get it, and I really want to work with this more. And by getting the R5, I'm glad I did, because now it's not like, oh, I really enjoyed that for the 2 weeks I had the camera, but I can't do it anymore. Now I know it's there, and when I'm ready to use it more, I will. The M1 Max can handle 8K video, so editing isn't a problem. It's really the storage. That 10K video took 500 gigabytes. The project file was 500 gigabytes to produce that. So that's where the real issue. It's not anything else. And again, I am an ordinary filmmaker, and I just love it from being able to push things and try things. So yeah, I think it is there for some of us. You just gotta get beyond the fact that I'll never need this to just trying something out. And I think it might open your eyes a little bit, as it did for me. And now I'm kind of in love with it. And I might shoot it again today. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so that ends all the questions I have prepared. So I've got about another 8 minutes. So if you guys have any questions, let's take a look at what's in the comments. Oh, here we go. So Core, good to see you here. How do you tell a story without words to show pain or emotion? How do you tell a story without words? Oh, there's many ways. First of all, if you've got people in the scene, it's just the look on their faces. I mean, if you've got somebody crying, that can sell happiness or sorrow so easily. So having people in the scene really helps. If you don't have people in the scene, well, that's easy to do it too. But you've got to choose your landscape. So for example, if I wanted to shoot a sorrow about the economic decline, what I could do is go around a city and look for burnt out buildings or collapsed buildings or grass growing through homes, that kind of stuff. I can choose those types of scenes. You know, you see a dead animal on the side of the road. I mean, things that we think of as, anything negative, they can help build a scene of sorrow. And happiness is the other way around. You see, like, synonymous with kids playing around, kids laughing, right? Or wildlife. Again, wildlife, if you see one animal eating another one, well, that's, a sad thing. And if you bring that up and you're shooting Wall Street, well, now you see that's a predatory thing, right? You can link these different things together. Or you see birds on a bird feeder, how that doesn't warm people up. And once you've done that, the very next thing is how you grade it. Now look at the matrix, perfect use of green. When you're in the matrix, everything has a green tint, but when they're out of the matrix, the color is normal. So your grading can make a huge difference too. Another thing too is if you want to, films that are kind of shot where things aren't quite right, maybe it's a dystopia, it's far in the future, different world, they desaturate things a little bit and push the highlights. And it creates a very sort of otherworldly, like things aren't quite right feel, right? And the last thing that can really affect emotion is your soundtrack. You pull a piece from Samuel Barber that they used on several Vietnam movies, it's just, there's nothing that's going to bring you right down. Use Paco Bell, that's going to bring you right back up. Use a happy song. All these things together can bring sorrow and happiness and tell a story. So, good question. I'm a wildlife photographer, and I'm disappointed by the new RF600 f4 for my R5. Was hoping for smaller, lighter design. Is there any news of the RF 500mm f4, which made me new, lighter, smaller design? No, not as yet. But that's. See, I could say, well, my 800mm f11, it's nice and light. And you say, yeah, but Simon, I can't use that. And so this is where we can't blame a duck for quacking. If you're all about the highest quality, if you want the best quality, you want much reduced chromatic aberration, you don't want any distortion from the center through the edges at any focal length, then you've got to kind of take the weight as what it is and choose the right gear. So when you're moving around with the stuff, it doesn't seem overly burdensome. But I love the 800mm. I'm an amateur, and for shooting video and stills, I love that lens. Sure, in the Canadian winter, when your light is mostly to the south and light is coming in at an angle, your shooting times are somewhere usually right from like noon till about 2 o'clock, where you get the best light. But this time of year, I can shoot any time of day. It's just an incredible lens. So. Yeah, if you want lightweight, you go with the 800mm, but you're not going to get the quality that you're looking for. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. As I say, don't blame a duck for quacking. Right. Hey, Daniel says, hey, a big fan of the channel. Keep it going. Thank you. But I'm going to keep it going for about 4 more minutes, and then I'm signing off because I've got to finish my review of the Artisan, the TT Artisan 21mm f1.5. So I'm going to get, and I want to have a new cup of tea too. This was rushed. I don't like rushing my tea. Cineverite Productions, does the EOS R5 8K RAW increase dynamic range over 8-bit C-Log 2 or 3? I've heard different things. Sorry, my nose is itchy. Well, you're comparing multiple things here. C-Log 1, 2, and 3, they all have different envelopes on how they deliver dynamic range. Now, C-Log 2 can provide better dynamic range, but it's a real bear to edit. What I recommend is if you're on the R5, use C-Log 3. The dynamic range is pretty good. It's very good. You can push those highlights without clipping. You can push the shadows without clipping, and it does a really good job. 8K RAW, I haven't edited in 8K RAW. I've only done 8K All-I because that took 500 gigs, and to do RAW probably would have taken a whole terabyte, and I'm limited in the space. Here's the thing, with C-Log 1, it's not the greatest with the highlights, and you do have to fight with it a bit more. C-Log 2 does a much better job, but you're really going to have to work on your editing. It's the noise that's brought into it. It's not for the ordinary filmmaker. Whereas with C-Log 3, it takes the best of both worlds. It takes the better dynamic range of C-Log 2, but it's the easiest to edit and put together. So, you know, if this is for a production, you might want to try C-Log 2 and see if you get a better result, but you do have to fight with it. And if you're good with editing with C-Log 2, then you might be happier with the end results. But C-Log 3 is a whole lot easier to edit, and you're going to find that it works very well with the shadows and the highlights. So that's it. And if you, I don't have the time to go into the detailed science of it, but there are areas where C-Log 2 will do better just because of the way the log curve works versus C-Log 3. And it's not like 2 is better than 1 and 3 is better than 2 and 1. They have just completely different envelopes for what you're trying to achieve. And I think if you're into the professional world, depending on what you're shooting, you're going to use 2 or 3. And like I said, there's plenty of really good videos on YouTube that talk about the minor differences between 2 and 3. So if you're looking, you're trying to bring the shadows and the highlights, then, you know, C-Log 3 is probably going to work better for you. But if you're really trying to push those shadows and pull the details out of the shadows, you might find that C-Log 2 works better for you. So here we go, guys. We're coming up to the end of the video. Just one thing I want to say. Yeah, it looks like this. The later I go in the day, the more people that are awake and want to watch. My son has started a YouTube channel, and he seems to be doing a whole lot more videos lately, to the point where I might have to stop doing this channel someday just so I can go behind the camera and take care of stuff for him. So what I would love you guys to be able to do is go and visit Planet Liam. If you put it in quotes, you'll find it quicker because he's not a big guy. He's only got 36 subscribers. But do me a favor, go and subscribe. You don't have to watch all of his videos, but every day he asks me, Daddy, do I have more subscribers? So I'm really trying to push him out there, trying to encourage him, not push him too much. I let him come to me and say he wants to do a video, but I'm trying to, when I say push him, I'm trying to encourage him that if he loves video, get into it. And as he gets older, I want to encourage him to do his own editing. But it's a fun thing to do. And to be honest with you, I actually enjoy producing videos for him more than I do for myself. So if he does start getting big enough, I might just say, you know what, I'll wind the channel down and I'll wind his up. Because when I'm doing these videos, I'm away from the family, whereas I'm doing his videos, I'm more pulled back into it. So let me know what you think too. What would you prefer if you were me? What would you do? That's it for now. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. Don't forget to subscribe for your chance to win, well, multiple prizes. You could win 2 Angelbird 128GB AV Pro MK2 V90 SD cards, along with an Angelbird dual SD card reader. Or you could win a Ulanzi LED light package with accent lights, an underwater light, and various other flat panel lights that are really good for lighting your subject for somebody starting out, or as a great kit for someone starting their own channel, like my son. It would be perfect for him. I'll be awarding these two when I get to 30,000 subscribers. The R5 I'll be awarding at 100,000 subscribers. And I have a night challenge on now until May the 14th. Shoot a video outside at night. I don't care what your story is. It's got to be between 30 seconds and 3 minutes. And you could win a Weeble S. So I did a video on last Sunday about that. Take a look at that. And Jordan Drake is going to be actually picking the winner. So I'm really looking forward to that. But thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker, guys. It's been a pleasure to have you here with me on your Saturday morning, afternoon, evening, or night. We'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.